Welcome to Monica May's One Take Live. I'm so grateful that you chose to spend some time with us. Before we start, I always ask you to please help us spread the word. Why don't you tap like and click the share button to invite your family and friends to join in on the discussion? We always love to hear from you. One Take Live streams on Facebook, of course, YouTube. We're also on Spotify, Apple, or any of your favorite streaming platforms. Equal Ground is a community centered organization that engages the American electorate through equal access to education, about voting, and empowerment. They work to fight for the issues that we believe in, from equality. They fight for living wages, healthcare, to fair elections, climate change, and more importantly, social justice. Our guest is Genesis Robinson. Genesis is I don't want to say interim, but he is the executive director now that Jasmine Burney Clark has taken on a broader role in politics with the Biden campaign for now. They're celebrating their 5th anniversary. It is amazing, Jen, because I remember sitting in a little coffee shop with Jasmine probably 7 years prior, when she first began this idea of this equal ground. And it always amazes me to where you all have grown. And I wanted to get to know you, wanted to find out how you got to become a part of Equal Ground, and also to, one, applaud you for the work that you've been doing and now that you are doing to carry this organization forward. So thank you for being on One Take Live.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Miss May. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Monica.
Monica, I knew you were going to get me, but my mother and grandmother would admonish me, had I not led off that way. But
Thank
it's good
you.
to be with you, Monica. I'm excited that you are making space to learn more about the work that we're doing at Equal Ground, and have been a big supporter of the organization from day one.
It is amazing, Jen. And I saw what her vision was then, and I saw how she gathered the people to become closest to her. It's not a big
Yes.
staff. It is people who believe, people who understand the mission, and who are about the work. How did you become involved with Equal Ground, though?
Yeah, so I started my career in the political sphere, serving in the United States Congress. After graduating from Florida A&M, I went up to DC on an internship with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and served in the United States House of Representatives. I was able to parlay that into a full-time job. And then after that, I moved back to Florida, got engaged, got married, and worked in the Florida legislature. And in between all of that, I was doing some consulting and managing various campaigns throughout the state. And after the 2020 election, Jasmine reached out through Kristen, who also helped
Mhm.
found the organization, and said, "Hey, we need to have a conversation. We want to have you come work with us and lead our work in Volusia County." After coming on board, it was sort of quickly identified that I could contribute in a more meaningful way than just serving in Volusia County. And they decided to create the position of political director, which would allow us to have a larger imprint and footprint on the advocacy work and in the advocacy space. And so we did that, and I've been serving in that role until Jasmine stepped away, and gave me the honor of serving as executive director for the organization.
I love it. I love it. So I can take the interim part off.
Well, no, still interim, still
Okay.
interim. No breaking news here. But yes,
Okay.
yes.
One of the things that you all do is give us legislative reports. I
Hmm.
appreciate that. They are in real time. They travel to the of state capital in Tallahassee. They hold rallies there on the steps. If it's a big enough issue, Jasmine and the team will post up right there and they will rally for whatever it is. They
Hmm.
are there with our legislative members. They know the folks. They will go up, and you don't need to pay for a lobbyist for you guys, because you lobby for yourselves. And you go up, and as I said, they talk about the issues that include everything from equality in living wages, in housing, in healthcare, fair elections, etc. And so, how did you all gain the respect that you all have garnered? Was it just by showing up month after month? Because Equal Ground is totally respected on the Hill.
hmm Well, I think it's a combination of a few things. I think first and foremost, our organization, while we are small, we're just a team of five. We have over 50 years of experience between all of our team working in the political space, right?
Mhm.
And so I think you have nothing to do but respect that type of contribution to the work and the ability to sustain a working environment in this civic engagement space. I think the other thing is, like you said earlier, we're consistent, right? We have made a commitment from the very beginning that we want to show up and represent our community day in and day out. For too long, our community was often forgotten about or only engaged during the political season. And so Jasmine had the vision 5 years ago to say, what does it look like to engage Black people year round and to have paid staff dedicated to doing that? And so I think because people see that, hey, this organization is for real, they're not just some pop up, that's going to engage or work through an election cycle, but they're in it for the long haul. They have year round programming, they offer voter education, strategic planning, leadership development, right? We're active in following the breaking news or sort of the developments that happen throughout the year, right? Outside of our signature programming. And so I think that lends itself to the credibility that we've been able to establish over the last 5 years.
For the record, can we call Equal Ground a nonpartisan organization?
Yeah,
Is that
so and I'm happy you said that. So Equal Ground is structured as a nonprofit, nonpartisan voter registration organization. However, we have two entities. So we're Equal Ground Education Fund. That is the entity that houses our nonprofit, nonpartisan work. But then we also have Equal Ground Action Fund, which is a C4, and that enables us to be partisan. Enables us to make decisions on candidates as well as legislation. So we,
Mhm.
we have two entities, and that also allows us to be nimble and act where we need to act and lead where we need to lead. It gives us great flexibility and latitude in that regard.
I wanted to make the distinction between that because a lot of people aren't aware of the differences in nonprofit and then, the C4. So that is off the table. I mean, is on the table. I wanted to make sure that we covered
Yes.
that. And so when you look to take upon legislative action, when you go up there, do you have the pre-described questions for you that you're trying to gain your answers for? What's the research process when you're going up to I don't want to say confront, but get in touch with, connect with our
Yeah.
legislators?
Yeah, and it's okay to say confront because that's what's necessary sometimes, right? But what we do is prior to the start of legislative session, I and the team look through thousands of bills, right, that are being proposed, and we say, well, what is it that best, or I should say, most impacts our community? What would have an immediate impact on the Black community? What are things that we should be for and advocating for, and what are things that we need to try to stop and prevent from passing? And so we take a look at those bills. We narrow it down to a listing of bills, typically under 100 bills, and then we rank those based on priority. And then based on that, we create talking points. We track those bills in real time. We know when they're going to a committee stop to the next committee stop. We know when they're going to be heard, when they go to the floor. And we really just lean in and put our entire operation behind following those bills and informing the community about the status of those bills as they move through the legislative process. So it's a all hands on deck approach. From following these bills from introduction to passage, or from introduction to not passage, because this year there were a little under 2,000 bills that were introduced in the Florida
Mm.
legislature, and of that 2,000, only 325 passed both chambers. So it's not easy to get legislation passed in Florida. It's a very difficult process, and we make sure we follow it all the way through.
It is interesting. How can a person bring something that is big in their community to your attention and perhaps get some legs underneath it so that it could perhaps be brought to their legislative person because they may not be able to make that journey up there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first I would say we encourage people to have conversations with their legislators directly. That is part of why we do our Take the Lead leadership training and we do our Equal Ground Day at the Capitol, because we really want to like demystify this thought that
Mm.
Tallahassee is some impenetrable process, or some place that is only reserved for lobbyists or the elite, if you will, right? Like everyday people can engage in this process. You elect these people, you have relationships with them oftentimes before they are elected, and so that should continue. Just because they hold a title doesn't mean that they should be unapproachable. And if you have elected leaders who are not approachable, then I think you should make a decision on whether or not they should remain your elected
Mhm.
representative, right? Because you want to have a relationship with these people. And so obviously we're happy to bridge that gap. As I said, we have over 30, 40 years of experience on our team, and so we're able to make that connection. We have great relationships with members, but certainly, reach out to their staff, familiarize yourself with them. And it's often best to do that during town halls, right? So if you hear or see that your legislator is having a town hall, go to the meeting, introduce
Mhm.
yourself to the staff, make sure that they know who you are, and let them know, like, hey, I'm going to be in communication with you and your office, and I just want you to put a face to the name because you plan to hear from me. And so,
Mhm.
you can make those proposals, but the key is to understanding the timeline. Too often, what we find in our community is people have really good ideas, but they propose them too late. And so, understanding when the legislature goes into session, understanding when you need to submit documents for appropriation requests, those are all vital parts of being successful in getting your initiatives through the legislature.
So submission of documentation, that's important, but
Yes.
knowing who your legislative representative is. Who did you vote into office? That's the
Yes.
one thing. How do you stay connected with them? One of the biggest things that I'm hearing from a lot of constituents is that even Sunday, when I did Point of View a couple of weeks ago, I heard from someone who has a nursing home, and she was talking to two of the constituents in the local runoff here, and she said, I would love to see our candidates before they approach the election more often after they've won.
That's right.
It's one thing for them to come through and just, to sit and chat and do the niceties during that whole election cycle, but then we don't get a chance to see them any longer after that. And I think that that happens in politics. It's not only just the local candidates, but
Mhm.
it's our legislators as well. So how do we make people? How do we get on people's list to make those visits, to make those stops? In other words, don't just come to see me on a Sunday at church to try and get my vote. People are wanting you to be more year round.
Yes, yes. And I think, part of that is calling them out, right? So letting them know that this is an expectation. And because this is an expectation, this is one of the values that I lead with when I cast my vote. It's not
Mhm.
about where you are on policy, it's also about where you are in terms of accessibility. Can I
Yeah.
reach you? Can I talk to you? Can I
Mhm.
touch you? Are you having town halls? Are you sending newsletters? Are you keeping me informed, right? And I think there has to be a shift in terms of leadership and what our elected leaders believe they are to be and how they are to show up. Because many of them have it twisted and think that they're only there to be the representative to vote, but it's really you're there to bridge that gap between the
Yeah.
process and keep your constituents informed. And so we, often encourage our legislators to show up in a different way, and where they don't, that's where we're here to bridge that gap. And then, there's also in certain communities there is just a disconnect because of the reality that sometimes if you don't have a black representative, they may not care to lead on certain issues, right? And
That's
so
very
that's
real.
why we have to make sure that we fill that void and fill that gap, because they're just not interested in caring about the things, or they don't share the values that you share, unfortunately. And so that's
Mhm.
why we have to work to close that gap.
We do, and we have to be able to, especially an organization like Equal Ground, be able to be that barometer, but
Hmm.
it has to be a fair barometer. You have to be able to listen to both sides, and while that barometer then determines the temperature, you have to be able to take whatever heat that comes with it. And that's
Absolutely.
the important part of the role that Equal Ground plays in terms of what I see. To reach out to Genesis and his team, you can always go to info@equalground.com. And if you want to learn more about what the organization is about, go to equalground.com, www.equalground.com. It's an organization that is a little over 5 years old. And you can always sow into this organization because there's need for them to have funding to go to bat for us. And how would we reach out if we wanted to make a donation?
Yes. So you can reach out to the organization by texting EG Turns 5 to 52886. Again, that's EG Turns 5 to 52886. You can connect with us online, equal-ground.com. We invite you to be a part of that network. But most importantly, we're in the digital social media age. We're on all the social media platforms. So if it's a social media platform that exists, we have a presence.
Hmm. The folks that we're talking about that who are at the inner core, let's give them a shout out now at Equal Ground. Who are they, Genesis, that work alongside you?
Yeah, so we have a phenomenal team over at Equal Ground. Pastor Marcus McCoy leads our faith outreach work. He's been with the organization since its inception. Brother Justin Jones, he's our field manager for Central Florida to South Florida. Miss Shakia Moore, she's our field manager as well as digital organizer. Her field territory is Central Florida to North Florida. And then we have Miss Brianna Evans Taylor, she's our operations manager, keeping everything tight and getting all the bills paid. And then we have our great board, who Jasmine, our founder, just recently went, and she's actually the newest board member for the organization.
Mhm. I have to tell you, when you think of a young organization who has their finger on the pulse, I think of Equal Ground, and I think Equal Ground has become a very respected voice in our community in terms of keeping us abreast of what is going on, what is happening
Mhm.
in the legislature. Also, you have these amazing phone calls. They come monthly. How do we
Yes.
get on the list to get on those calls?
Yeah, so I would encourage your listeners to text Equal Ground, which is one word, to
Mhm.
52886. Again, that's
Okay.
Equal Ground, one word, to 52886. When you do that, you're going to receive a link back. That link houses all of our pertinent information. It has all of our events. It has links to help you register to vote or update your voter information. It has different events and things like that, ways to donate and support the organization. But also it adds you to our network. And so when we send out texts, when we send out alerts, when we send emails, you will be included on that list. You won't have to take any other action. You won't have to opt in any other way. By simply texting Equal Ground 52886, it will allow us to have you a part of our network and our system. And so, as you said, we do the Black Political Empowerment Monthly Call. It is the third Monday of every month, and we launched it last year on Juneteenth. So this call will actually be celebrating 1 year next month, and we're excited about it because it really gives Black folks and allied partners an opportunity to convene in one space and hear pertinent updates. Right, there's no expectation for people to be on camera. We understand that people live busy lives. We have it from 7 to 8:30. We go through, we give state updates, local updates, federal updates. We give an opportunity for folks to tap into a call to action. And then we typically have a speaker that speaks, for about 20 minutes or so. And then we open up for questions and give folks an opportunity to engage. So it's really effective way to reach our community and to keep them informed monthly.
Mhm. And these calls sometimes have 50, 60, 70, hundreds of people on them. And
Yes.
so it really would behoove you to just join in the process and just hear what's going on. And are the calls are virtual or via phone?
Yes, so the calls are virtual via Zoom,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
Zoom has the option if you
Yeah,
want to call in on your phone, you can
yeah,
call in and listen. You don't need the computer. You don't need to have a Zoom account.
yeah.
Even you can just tap in what in the way that best serves you.
Mhm. In the role as interim, what are some things that you can see yourself changing Genesis, or just
Mhm.
upgrading, or just kind of nudging along?
Yeah, well, one of my goals as the interim executive director is to really expand our footprint.
Mhm.
Jasmine has done a great job of creating the brand of Equal Ground, and I often say, there's not a space that I go into that people don't find value in the work that we do.
Mhm.
However, I do go into a lot of spaces and people are unfamiliar with the work that we do, and so my goal is to expand that footprint to because I think, when we expand that footprint, we allow people to be connected to a source that allows us to have a greater impact in our community. And so it's really about that. It's not about Equal Ground getting more recognition or credit or necessarily raising more money, but it's about saying, hey, if we can connect people to these resources and really
Mhm.
get this thing out there throughout the state, our impact would be enormous, right? To think to have a Black-led voting rights organization committed to civic engagement in Black communities throughout the state of Florida, when we really activate that and when we, 10x this thing, it's
Mhm.
going to be a really big deal, and we're going to have a major impact. And so that's really what I hope to do. I mean, obviously, it takes resources to do that expansion, and so we also are undergoing a capital campaign right now where we're trying to raise $100,000 in support of our 5-year anniversary. And again, folks can go to they can text EG turns 5 to 52886 to tap in and be able to donate.
I think it's really important that we keep the work going. And one of the things that I was very proud of, Genesis joined me as a panelist for our just getting a chance to hear from Gen Z. And we had several Gen Z folk in the house at CB Bistro about a month or so ago. And we said we would try it again, and we will do that again. And we'll do it in a different way, because I want to put now Gen Z on the panel and we listen
I love that.
directly to them,
I love that.
you know? And so one of the things, and we got you on film, Jen, because you made so many, oh, so many good comments. But when you think of the Gen Z population, what first comes to mind as to, are they missing out on something, or are they creating space that we need to hurry up and catch up to?
Yes, I think it's the latter, certainly. In fact, I just did an interview earlier this morning. A reporter wanted to know my thoughts on Coco Golf, and
Okay.
she made some comments where she was critical, where folks are saying that she was critical of the governor, and I don't see it as necessarily being critical. I think it is um, a moment that we need to collectively recognize that Gen Z individuals and folks have something to say, right? I
Mhm.
think for too long we have tried to tell them what the issues are. We have tried to tell them that they should vote for reasons that may not resonate with them. And we need to take a moment, close our mouths, open our ears, and listen to what it is that they have to say. And so I was really appreciative of the opportunity to come and be a part of that event that you had. And
Mhm.
I just think it speaks to your commitment to hear voices from all perspectives, right? And so I learned a lot. I might have been a panelist that day, but I learned a lot. I had a great opportunity to hear some of their concerns and know that we need to make space for them in this movement.
One of the things that came out and is still just on the top of what that list is that I made, is that they're not necessarily, they're voting issues. They're not
Mm,
voting necessarily according to a person's personality,
that's right.
according to their work experience. They
Yes.
are voting on issues, and the issues that are important to them, that's what we need to figure out, because it makes sense. It
Yes.
really, really, really makes sense. And this thing of talking about our governor, quote unquote, I always wonder, how would you put yourself in the situation, if you're paying attention, to not understand that some of the things that are happening in the state of Florida are just unheard of. Like, why? What is causing this? There is a venerable hatred,
Hmm.
and Gen Z, she's part of, would she be Gen Z, or right below?
I
I
believe she is.
yeah, I she's speaking her truth, and that is one of the things of Gen Z. Gen Z to me reminds me of our Medgar Evers, of our
Hmm.
Dr. Kings, they're going to speak their truth.
Right.
And
Yeah.
to whatever case it may be, and we have to listen, we have to move, we have to stop being so just sit still and let things happen for us. I believe if I had a wish list, my wish list is that everyone would begin to understand again the importance of their vote. Everyone again would understand that it is imperative upon them to bring their young people with them, to understand and go to forums, to understand and hear some of the calls that Equal Ground puts out, because you are at the catalyst, you all are there, you're bringing the information back to us. So it is my focus to help you get the word out about Equal Ground so that more people will understand. You want to find out what's happening? Equal Ground can bring it to you. And
That's
that's
right.
why I wanted to have you on here today, Genesis. It's very important that we learn who the storytellers are, the real truth, and when you want to hear it square and dear, you got to get it from Equal Ground. I mean, that's my belief. That's my
Yes.
belief. And if it sounds like it's a little bit swayed or whatever, take it as you like, but it
Mhm.
is the truth. Equal Ground can get the information out. And I am still working on what we talked about before
Mhm.
with different stations, and I have one more person's ear to pull on that. So don't give up on that. We do have a legislative season that we're in right now, not going into, but we're
Right.
in right now. In the last 3 minutes or so, what could you say to get people more engaged in this election cycle so that it is a true democratic outcome?
Yeah, so I would say that we need to first make sure that we're informed voters, right? One of the core pillars of the work that we do at Equal Ground is voter education. That's why we're actually on a statewide tour where we're traveling the state, educating folks about what took place during legislative session and how they can tap in and prepare for the upcoming election. It's critical. And to your other point about the thought that we're trying to be, when we talk about what took place during legislative session, if we're constantly saying the word Republican or if we're constantly mentioning the governor's name, it is simply because the reality of these are the people who are responsible for passing these laws. It's not us that we're saying that that's we're not trying to badmouth the Republican Party
Mhm.
per se, but the reality is they hold a supermajority in our state government and they are the ones passing these laws. And so if you don't like the laws that are being passed, you have to look at the people who are in control passing the laws. That is merely a fact, right? And so that's what I love most about our voter education tour is that we don't even have to say who you should vote for. I don't necessarily believe that is our role to tell people who to vote for. We just tell people who is responsible for the things that you're seeing in your community. But one other point I wanted to mention about preparing for the upcoming election. In 2021, Florida passed Senate Bill 90. It was a voter suppression bill that required all vote by mail ballots to be requested every election cycle. And the reason this is so important is because in 2020, our community led the way in being the number one demographic of people who chose vote by mail as a method.
Mhm.
But yet, because of that, we have seen that method attacked year after year. And so they've eliminated drop boxes, they've had new ID requirements, but the cherry on the top is now requiring that you request a ballot every election cycle. At the beginning of 2023, they wiped away all of the existing requests that were on file. And so that was over 4.2 million Floridians who had their vote by mail ballot request invalidated, and now they have to make a new request. And if people do not know that, they will be sitting at home waiting to get a ballot that will never come. And so if
Mhm.
you're someone who votes by mail and you're listening to this, please reach out to your supervisor of elections. Please put in a new request. And most importantly, please share this information with others who you also know may vote by mail.
This is one of the key ways that we're going to um, see us show up in this coming election, and understand that it's not just November. We have an August election too, and more importantly, we have another runoff election in District 5 coming up in a couple of days or so.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
so I just want everybody just to be on alert for what's happening. Genesis, you are welcome to come back to One Take Live whenever you are ready. You have
yes,
an open door, please.
yes, yes.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. I appreciate the time, Monica. Always great to be with you.
All right. And that is it for One Take Live. Thank you so much for being with us.